A Dictionary of Ukrainian Emotions.
Hello, my name is John Freedman, and I would like to introduce you to a series of podcasts that I and a great team of writers, translators, scholars, and publishers are doing. It is titled A Dictionary of Ukrainian Emotions. In all, it will consist of 9 separate English-language episodes presenting the writings of 9 authors who are members of the Theater of Playwrights in Kyiv. Today's first podcast features a short, powerful, and poetic piece by Anastasiia Kosodii, How to Talk to the Dead. Like all of the texts we will present, How to Talk to the Dead was written in 2022 in the aftermath of the full-scale Russian invasion of Ukraine. The idea for Anastasia's piece grew out of her reactions to the news about the atrocities in Bucha, Mariupol, and other cities. Anastasiia began her career as a playwright in Zaporizhia, where she was a founding member of the Zaporizhia Nova Drama Theater. She has collaborated with numerous important theaters in Germany, and since relocating to Kyiv, she has had several plays produced in Ukraine's capital, including the Post-Play Theater and Lesia Ukrainska Theater. She is a founding member of the Theater of Playwrights in Kyiv, which is crucial to our story today and throughout all of the podcasts to come. In fact, the entire idea for the Dictionary of Ukrainian Emotions podcasts arose out of an English-language anthology that was published in the United States by Laertes Press in 2023 and has gone on to win awards, affect hearts, and influence minds all over the world. Consisting of texts written exclusively by members of the Theater of Playwrights, the book is titled A Dictionary of Emotions in a Time of War, 20 Short Works by Ukrainian Playwrights. As I already mentioned, we will present 9 of those 20 texts, 1 writer per podcast. To read the texts, we engaged a team of well-known actors from the United States and the UK. Each podcast will consist of 1 actor's performance of a single text, followed by a conversation between the actor and me about their experience encountering contemporary Ukrainian writing. Some wonderful observations arise during these chats. For today's first podcast, however, we have altered the basic format just a little. Following the reading of How to Talk to the Dead by the American actress Alessandra Torresani, I will talk to Anastasiia Kosodii herself about her writing of her text, and then I will chat with Nina Kamberos, the founder of Laertes Press, whose publication of A Dictionary of Emotions in a Time of War has had such repercussions around the world. We are great believers in teamwork, and it is my pleasure to present, if only briefly, the members of our team. First is Alessandra Torresani. Our performer for this episode is a popular actress in American television serials and sitcoms who debuted at the age of 10 in 1997. She was a member of the cast of the wildly successful The Big Bang Theory and has appeared in some 40 films and TV shows in her 25-year career. We are extremely grateful to Ukrainska Pravda for giving us a grant to put this project together and for hosting it. We, the team putting these podcasts together, are playwrights Anna Khalas, Dmitro Ternovi, and Irina Kharets, as well as theater scholar Valentina Tuzhina on the Ukrainian side. Nina Kamberos and I, both from the United States, round out the team. This project could not have happened without the substantial support of the late Philip Arnaud and his Center for International Theater Development. Philip provided generous grants making possible the original writing of these texts. And now, please join us for a reading and discussion of Anastasiia Kosodii's How to Talk to the Dead.
A Dictionary of Ukrainian Emotions.
How to Talk to the Dead by Anastasiia Kosodii. Yesterday, I saw 4 photos of Ukrainians who were killed by Russians. The first was a gray-haired man who was being lifted on a board from a mass grave. His pants were down to his calves. His chest was swollen. The second was a woman with long dark hair and a red jacket. Her arms were crossed on her chest. Lilies of the valley rose up to the right of the woman. To the left was earth plowed by explosions. The third was a black body bag not fully closed. You could see a man's head with an open eye and his gaze frozen. The fourth, this girl was alive, but she had no left cheek and part of her jaw was missing. Everything was red. At night, I lie down and I recall doing an interview near Kyiv with an artist who is now exhuming bodies. At night, he said, I sometimes hear sounds. I don't fear them. They are our dead. Let them come. They died so badly, I, at least, will talk to them. How do you talk to your dead? I think you know. No special workshops are required. We determine our dead as a fact of life, not of death. Tragic as it may be, we tell stories about them. We at least try to imagine them. An apartment in a new building in the suburbs of Kyiv, surrounded by parks and pine forests. Minibuses from the Arsenal metro station. The Sea of Azov, alongside the silhouette of a metallurgical plant. Vacations to salt mines to breathe and restore your lungs. Local champagne that is impossible to drink. The communist Artyom, who came down off his pedestal on Central Square. Visits to the hairdresser for hair care procedures. An ice palace for sports, performances, and competitions. School number 1, school number 2, school number 3. Ammonia-free, long-lasting cream coloring. 3-1 dark brown hair color. Oat milk for conditioning. Tasks for the future. Invent stories so that your dead will speak through them about the life that has taken place and is yet to be. Outstanding, eccentric, unforgettable, ordinary people the way they wanted to be. I think, how long might it take to begin? No one promises you will do everything right. Don't waste your time searching for the form, for words or speech, and suddenly there will be such words as has never been. It's never been this bad. History wrote itself justly. Enemies gave rise to sunflowers. Your people were alive as they wished to be.
A Dictionary of Ukrainian Emotions.
Hello, Anastasiia. Good to see you today. We have picked a bad day to have this conversation today, with bombings in 5 Ukrainian cities, have shown us once again that your extraordinary piece, How to Talk to the Dead, continues to be extremely timely. And I want to know, what is the event specifically, just historically, when you wrote this piece? What event did you have in mind? Or did you just have the whole thing in mind?
Yeah, I mean, I think I wrote it in 2022, and at that time it was, I think, if I'm not mistaken, like autumn. And so at that time, Ukrainian army was deoccupying certain regions in Ukraine. First it was Kyiv region, then it was Kharkiv region, then it was the south, like Kherson, Izium, and so on. And obviously every time when Ukrainian army frees a territory from the Russian occupation, first, it's joy, it's very lovely videos of people like welcoming the soldiers and so on. But then the exhumation process starts when they start to dig out the graves, the mass graves that happen under the Russian occupation. And I think at that time I was very under the influence of the news that we got from Izium, from the mass graves from there, but also we had a lot of information about the occupation of the Kyiv region. And on the first day of war, I think a mom of my friend actually wanted me to come to her house in Irpin which was later partly under occupation, then under the light shelling, but nobody knew at that time, and I just by some miracle didn't go to her. So anyway, I was thinking a lot about those photos, those videos, those stories that were around us. And also, unfortunately, in the autumn of 2022, some of my close friends died on the front line. So it was a very complex subject of a death. And in a normal life, you do not face death that much. It's like a friend dies, or like a grandma or somebody, and it's tragic. But then you kind of have this healthy process of like grieving, and then coming to terms with this loss. But then in war, it repeats, and then you don't even have the time to grieve or like write a post on Facebook about it, because then something more horrible happens. So I was thinking about that. And I was thinking about how to talk to our dad, like what kind of rituals we can make to grieve through, especially in this time. So the text, I guess, was kind of a meditation on that subject, because later I wrote like a proper big text with the same title for the Nationaltheater Mannheim in Germany, and it was also like I was planning to write completely different text, but then with all of these tragedies, I thought, okay, maybe we need to find a new language to talk about everything.
That's something I want to ask about, actually, specifically. First of all, I just want to say that this book that your piece is published in, A Dictionary of Emotions in a Time of War, 20 short works by Ukrainian playwrights, all of the playwrights being members of the Theater of Playwrights, which you are a founding member of. This is a 300-page book, and your extraordinary piece takes up 4 pages. And I still find it, every time I come across it, every time I read it, I still find it to be one of the most powerful. I would also like to point out, just for the fact of the matter, that your piece has been performed worldwide in my worldwide Ukrainian play readings over 20 times. It's been performed a lot. But the question I wanted to come to, what you were just talking about, right in your small piece, you write, tasks for the future. Invent stories so that your dead will speak through them. And then it goes on. But you're giving yourself a little task there. You're saying, hey, here's something that we have to do. We haven't done this quite yet. We don't know how to do this yet. Here's something that we need to do. Here's something that reality has brought upon us, Ukrainian writers. And this is a task that you have dealt with beautifully here and elsewhere. And then it's something that all Ukrainian writers are dealing with, is attempting to find an adequate response to something that is entirely inadequate, something that is entirely unacceptable, entirely uncivilized. I'm not going to search for any more words. It's already obvious what I'm talking about. And Ukrainian writers are tasked to find a way to respond to this adequately, and therefore not only to speak to their dead, but to speak to the people who will come in the future. That's a heavy load to carry, isn't it?
It's a big ethical also dilemma how to do it, because I think the view on that kind of changed throughout 20th century, and now we're facing also a question like how to do it in an ethical way. Like, I cannot pretend that through me everybody is talking, like the dead and alive and so on. No, obviously I just see the need that certain stories need to be heard, and then maybe I have some resources to help them be heard. But obviously still, as a playwright, even if I'm working in a documentary genre, still I it's like I'm changing them a bit by the bit. But yeah, I think this is what the whole theater of playwrights is trying to do right now, because as always, it's the independent theaters that starts stuff like that, and then the big theaters follow. And I would say that we were talking with my colleagues from Theatre of Playwrights, and we were saying that, yes, maybe this is our task right now. We don't have a big stage, and many like beautiful special effects, but then we can tell the stories and not let them be forgotten. And, the theater is also quite specific medium for that, but it's good for certain things.
Yeah. And you have to find a forum to put this all in, at least as far as I see it. These are not topics for happy ending musicals. They are not comedies. I can imagine a very dark comedy. But the genres that you're looking, you must find a new genre. You must find a new way to say these things that is acceptable, because another problem that you have is the despair is such in your audience, and the despair is such in your own minds, and the despair is such in my own mind, that it becomes almost unbearable. You are tasked, again, you writers, Ukrainian writers now, are tasked with the ways of finding a way to experience this yourselves and therefore pass this on to others in a way that helps them rather than kills them. I guess I'm repeating myself, but I just want to say how incredibly impressed I am with the work that you've done and the other writers. Ukrainian writers have really, really stepped up, and they have really come to accept the task that has been put on them by history. It's an amazing thing.
Thank you, John. I remember in 2014 when Natalka Vorozhbit, one of the most prominent Ukrainian playwrights, she said that unfortunately now playwrights will have many things to write about, for many, many years. And it's becoming even more and more true. And obviously we have a lot of plays that are not that good in quality, but it's also a very healthy process, I think, because finally theaters and society also understanding that, yes, maybe we cannot, imagine that war is not existing, that we cannot just fill our, stages with comedies and, operas and all stuff like that. It has to be about what is happening now. But it's obviously also a question how to write for the audience in Ukraine and how to write for the audience outside of Ukraine. Because I'm working a lot with German theaters, and it was like with this big play, How to Talk to the Dead, it was a big issue for me also working with actors, because I had Ukrainian actors and German actors. And for Germans, well, they are very much in Brechtian system, and it's completely different stuff. To work with it. And then with my text, we had a lot of discussions. How can they, it's not a plot-based play. It's quite a monologue-ish stuff. It's quite post-dramatic, but still they have to be on certain position. And obviously they cannot pretend that they are, Ukrainians who really experienced that. And in the end, we decided that what they play on stage is their relation to the words that they are saying, like how they react as Germans, as people. This is what they portraying on stage. It was quite nice, I have to say. It was very tough stuff, but it was good. And I would say for the German audience, it was also quite good. But then in Ukraine, many people tell me, I experiencing war enough, and I don't want to go to the theater and see it again, like in a very obvious way. But then any play now is about war. You see a classical piece, and then your mind is just searching for the parallels with like everything that is happening outside. So it's even a tougher question how to do it now, and how not to re-traumatize the audience, but at the same time, give them the comfort of seeing their own experience on stage. Because I think this is very important also in the theater. When we represent a very real experience of many people, this is important, because then if you see your life in art, then it's like you exist, you are seen by the society. So yeah, that's not easy.
Anastasiia, thank you so much. This was a wonderful conversation. I wish you all the best with whatever you're doing next. I know you're working on something in London too. I look forward to hearing about that and seeing that and everything else that you're doing.
A Dictionary of Ukrainian Emotions.
And now I'd like to talk to Nina Kamberos, who is the publisher of A Dictionary of Emotions in a Time of War, 20 short works by Ukrainian playwrights, the book from which we have chosen all of the texts that we will be reading in this podcast. Nina Kamberos is the publisher of Laertes Press in the United States. It's an extraordinary small publisher that publishes the kinds of works that most people don't take the time to publish. She does a lot of work in translation. In fact, all of the work I believe that she does is in translation. And A Dictionary of Emotions in a Time of War is the first time. Nina, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm quite sure that this is the first time that you have published Ukrainian text. Is that true?
That's right, John.
And how did that come about, Nina? I'm throwing you this question because I know how this came about, but I want to hear you tell me how it came about.
We had a friend in common, a French publisher of the same sorts of dramas that we publish, and he connected us because he knew you and he knew you were looking for a publisher, and he knew I was interested in engaged literature and engaged drama. So through an email, we were connected.
Yes, Dominique Dagmieux, the French publisher, he wrote me an email and he said, you might be interested in getting in touch with this person at Laertes Press. And I sent you an email, and within a matter of minutes, we were working, and it was an amazing thing. I think it needs to be said that the book and these texts were almost all written within the first few weeks of the full-scale invasion in March 2022. And they are all texts taken from writers that were written by writers who are part of a theater called the Theater of Playwrights in Kiev, which was founded by a group of 20 writers, 20 playwrights. Among them are many well-known writers, some less well-known. All of them in the last 2+ years have actually become internationally known writers. And Anastasiia Kosodii was telling me, Nina, I didn't actually know this, that she took this short work that she wrote, How to Talk to the Dead, and she actually created a larger work from it, which was then staged in Germany with great success. So this work is actually the beginning of more work that took place over the next few months in 2022. But you and I began talking about putting together this book because I have known Maxim Kurechkin for decades, and Maxim at the time was the artistic director of the Theater of Playwrights. They do the artistic directorship on a revolving basis. He was the first artistic director for 2 years, and it's now moved on to a triumvirate of writers. I knew immediately that I needed to see texts that were being written by these writers. I asked Maxim to send me texts that his writers had been writing, and he wrote back to me and said, no, I'm not going to send you those texts. They were all written before the war. They all belong to an entire different era, and they have nothing to do with the world we live in now and the life that we're living. And so give me a little bit of time, and if we can find a little bit of support for them, I will get them all to write new texts. And so I went to Philip Arnaud, my colleague at the Center for International Theater Development in Baltimore, who, as you know, Nina, died about 10 days ago. He was very much alive and well at the time that we began this project together, and Philip put together a grant for most of the writers to write new texts. And so new texts began coming in. I began translating them and sending them off to you, and over time we put together this book. But it was delayed a little bit. I was hoping to get it out immediately. Literally, I was hoping to have a finished manuscript to you by the end of March, and it actually took until October. What was the reason for that, Nina?
Well, two of the writers in particular were living under extreme circumstances. Max was on the front lines or was serving in the territorial guard, and had actually been wounded during that period. And then someone else was in occupied Kherson, Markovsky. And both of them said, yes, we'll be finished soon. They made promises, and it just took so much longer. Markovsky disappeared at one point, and I was afraid that he had passed away, but he hadn't. And in the second version, in the second iteration, we did have a text from him, but we were waiting, and we had to be patient.
Yeah, I should point out that there are two versions of the book. There's the one that you wonderfully put out almost immediately as soon as we got the final text. The final text that came in, at least the first time around, was from Maxim Kurychkin in October of 2022. And at that point, we decided we could not wait anymore for Yevhen Markovsky. And so we published, although the title was 20 Short Works by Ukrainian Playwrights, there were actually 19 works in that first version of the book. We published a note that when Markovsky shows up, we will insert into the next version of this book, we will insert his text. And then later we were able to get, just before we were to go to press with the second version, what you call the second iteration, we were able to find some songs that he had written, and we put those into the second version. But yeah, the speed with which Laertes published this book is astonishing. I mean, in an American publishing, usually you're talking 2 years for a book to come out. Sometimes more, sometimes maybe a little less. But you had Maxim's final piece, which was the final piece that went into the first version, probably by the end of October, because Max sent it to me, I think in early October, it had to be translated. And then I got it to you, and literally it was January 2nd or 3rd, if I remember correctly, that you published that first version. It was astonishing speed and extremely important, because we needed to get these works out to the people. We needed to get these works out where people were going to read them, perform them, see them, hear them, talk about them, because this was our way of making our contribution to the horrendous situation in Ukraine. How do you turn books around so quickly, Nina? How do you do that?
No, well, we worked in a way we hadn't worked before as we received the text.
Really? Is that true? Is that so?
Well, we usually have everything in consecutive order, but you weren't able to create the order of the book until you had all the texts. So we treated each text as a whole in itself, and we designed it, and then it turned it over to two editors, a copy editor, a proofreader, and then we were able to be finished with that, but we didn't know where it would fit into the whole of the book, because it took you a little while to decide on what the order of the book should be. You had to have read through everything, and felt the tenor, emotional tenor of it.
Right.
So that was different for us. But if we had waited, then we would have had to do everything so quickly. It would have really been impossible. And
you see that it was so important for this to get out so quickly and so early, because these works, I curate a project called the Worldwide Ukrainian Play Readings, and I organize, I'll put it that way, I organize readings, productions, videos, films, installations, discussions of these and other Ukrainian works by many other writers all over the world. We have approximately 30 countries involved. We've now had 670 events that have taken place. And the works that comprise the book that you published, A Dictionary of Emotions in a Time of War, they form the largest number of works that have been performed and read. For example, the work that we took for the title by Alyona Astasieva, A Dictionary of Emotions in a Time of War, that work has been performed over 110 times now. The book, of course, is extremely important in bringing attention to these works, and were it not for the book, I would not have been able to promote the text nearly as well. And the book is done quite well. let me just say it straight. Tell us about some of the awards that we've pulled down with this book.
Well, we've won awards. We're in many university libraries, which is something that touches me the most deeply. But we were the Telegraph, the online Telegraph, decided that all the books that came out in 2023, this is the second iteration, that it was the 21st in terms of importance. It was on their Christmas list. And then we just won a Bronze IPPY Award for current events in the category of humanitarian, social issues and humanitarian.
And what is an IPPY Award? Not everybody's going to know what an IPPY Award is. What's that?
It's an independent publishers award, and all presses, small presses, even self-publishing, but also university presses, all participate in these contests. And there are many, many categories. And so we won in that category.
Yeah.
Maybe one thing I'd like to say, John, is just the first version was an acting edition, which we don't distribute in the usual channels. And it's the distribution channels that slow everything down. So we did that first. And then we made a second iteration in a different form. And the form that we chose was a square. And we chose that form because it seemed to us that Ukraine was something of a female country, because it's a country that never has invaded any other country, but has been repeatedly invaded on their own. It's a country that has the most fertile topsoil on the earth. And we followed the Chinese vision of the cosmos, which was the domed heavens, which is the shell of a turtle, and the square earth, which is the body of a turtle. They see the turtle as a model of the universe. And so we made it a square because, like the earth, we felt that it had the resilience and the resistance and the stamina, and that it would never be defeated. So for us, it was a symbol, and we told all the writers as well what the meaning of it was. And I believe that symbol will prove to be true.
As do I. And I will say that's an absolutely beautiful little story and explanation as to why you published in the unorthodox square shape. And I will also say that in my work with all of these texts, I always think of myself as throwing texts at Putin and the Russian invaders and defending Ukraine. I do what little bit I can, what very, very, very small bit I can to defend Ukraine by encouraging Ukrainian writers to write texts, and then we all get together and we throw them up as a defense against the invasion. I know that's too idealistic, but we have found ourselves in a world in which we have to be idealistic. There is no other way. And I really, truly appreciate your being an idealist along with the rest of us, Nina. You've been a tremendous partner. Thank you so much for joining us for this conversation.
It's been a privilege to be a part of this, John. I'm forever grateful. Thank you.
And there we have it. The first entry in the Dictionary of Ukrainian Emotions series of podcasts, which will introduce you to 9 texts written by founding members of the Theater of Playwrights in Kyiv. As a reminder, allow me to say that all of them were written after the beginning of the full-scale invasion of Ukraine by Russia. And they are all published in English in the anthology titled A Dictionary of Emotions in a Time of War, 20 short works by Ukrainian playwrights. As does Anastasiia Kosodii's poetic How to Talk to the Dead, which you have just listened to. Every one of them stands as proof of the power and resilience of the Ukrainian spirit. Let no one ever again doubt the existence of the Ukrainian nation, the riches of its culture, or the beauty of its language. Our next podcast will feature the British actress Kristen Millward as she performs I Want to Go Home, a compelling piece by Oksana Savchenko. Until then, thank you for joining us today. I am your host, John Freedman, and I look forward to connecting with you again soon.
A Dictionary of Ukrainian Emotions.